Hello.
Thanks for opening IRNOP.
My pleasure.
And you're from?
I'm Dutch originally. I'm now based in the UK,
Okay.
in Manchester University.
Okay. And you work with transition theory normally, or?
Transition theory is not one theory.
Okay.
I started out more with evolutionary economics,
Okay.
then a bit of innovation studies, but increasingly I also try to do discourse theory or political science or consumption studies, because you need to analyze the different parts of the system. So I'm increasingly trying to engage with different types of literatures, and the last few years also with project studies.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the styles of my academic, that I don't try to repeat myself over and over again, but try to link it to what's going on in other fields.
Yeah.
Which is time consuming, because you need to read a lot of literature, and I'm sure,
but we're
sure I
happy
missed
you
quite a
joined,
lot of important things from your field, but
No,
it's
that's
also
fine.
interesting because you read widely. And,
Yeah. And you had good references. I mean, Christoph is here, Midlea.
Okay, yeah.
You cited him, so
I didn't know.
he was one asking a question. But what was really interesting for me was the long span to really achieve a transition in time. You said 30, 40 years, right?
Yeah, 30, 40, 50 years.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I did a dozen historical case studies, from horse and carriages to automobiles, from sailing ships to steamships. They all took 60, 70 years, particularly if there's infrastructure change involved. So.
And I thought your example, was it trams in French cities?
Yeah.
That was really interesting to see, how it transformed over time and gradually, and then it took off somehow.
Yeah. This is a well-known issue in innovation studies and history of technology. The first telephones, for example, in the house, they were not for social communication. They were not in the living room. They were in the hallway.
Yeah.
They were more meant for household management. So most of the technologies that you look at, radio similarly were meant to transfer church sermons.
Yeah.
Many technologies started with a particular purpose, but then as people learn, they'd start using them in different ways. And this was the same with the tram systems, which initially was just only to reduce congestion.
Yeah.
But then people thought, well, they're quieter, they're quicker, maybe we can close off the city center. They became a different kind of tool for urban transformation.
Yeah.
So I think that's the interesting thing of innovation, that you learn over time. The technology may do something that you hadn't anticipated. Same with the mobile phones, which initially were for calling, 20 years ago, and now they're doing everything.
Yeah.
So that's the fascinating thing of innovation, and how it changes. We can't always foresee what's going to happen with new technologies.
No. And one of the pictures you showed was also, when you make pilot tests and runs, it's easy to see it's like just an engineering check, right?
Yeah.
But you show that there's a lot of different aspects that you can touch by doing trials, right?
Yeah. No, definitely. Yeah. Particularly the first trams, some of them were landmark projects.
Yeah.
And in France, you got mayors who are elected. That's also the institutional setup of a country is quite important. And in France, the mayors have a lot of power. They're elected for 5 years, and they actually have budgets to spend. So some of them did have a platform of, if you elect me, I'm going to do this big tram system, and then they make it a real big sort of project, but nicely designed, and they open it, and that is then engaging the wider public. It's it's stimulating the public debate. It may lead to behavioral change. So it's of course you also need a project operator, who's operating the trams, but it has a lot of wider effects.
And now they have trams in a lot of French cities.
Yeah. And that's what we try to explain in the paper, which we published in 2019. I think, why does France have so many more urban tram systems than any other country?
Yeah. And you said it wasn't just a commute, it also transformed the way we use them, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So it's not just a transportation vehicle, it's more to a modern city.
Yeah, modern city, the quality of life, because then you have less cars in the city center, but also then the suburbs, you start extending the metro lines. Yeah. The value of houses goes up if they're closer. So, it becomes a wider transformation tool, and a lot of people are happy about it. There was initial uncertainty because the shop owners thought, well, will we still have people in our shop if people cannot park their car?
Yeah.
So there's also with any project there's also resistance from people that fear. It turned out to be unfounded. It actually attracted more people because you get more pedestrians, more people walking past your shop.
Yeah.
But in any project.
It was the same in Sweden when we had this smoking ban, in cafeterias.
Yeah.
Then the cafeteria will say, we won't earn a buck. And then they actually earned more. Because people just said smoking. So it's interesting. It's the first reflex, but also aligning with the project domain. You said that a lot of these drivers are projects actually for transition.
Well, it's more the vehicles of change.
Vehicles
but I
of
would
change,
say that the drivers are often also broader.
Okay.
The financial system, the political system.
Yeah.
Do companies see a market or not? So
Yeah.
yeah, of course, any project studies sometimes think everything's project. And I'm saying it's a vehicle of change, but you also need to look at the wider sort of drivers.
And you said a number there. You said around 60-70%.
But this is more about if you look at the greenhouse gas emission reductions. You can. You can see where the main emissions come from, and I just went through some of the technologies. I think most of the emission reduction, the majority, 60-70%, will have to come from projects.
Yeah.
The green hydrogen, offshore wind, electric vehicle, battery plants. As the other speaker also said, there will be so much investment needed in the coming decades, but mostly through projects.
Yeah.
Not all projects. There's also consumers having to buy things. Not everything's done through a project, but projects will be essential. Yeah.
Thanks, Frank, and thanks for opening IRNOP once again.
No, it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's always a risk to invite someone from a different community, and I hope it wasn't disappointing.